Good morning and welcome to Sunday Story Hour, where we share real life stories of how human design has helped our guests know themselves on a deep, transformative level. By knowing and trusting ourselves, we develop deeper, more honest relationships and unlock our true gifts. I'm Kathy Bashanko, and my guest this week is Barbara Grafstrom. Barbara is a 5-2 sacral manifesting generator, and she is my big sister. Some of you might remember that Barbara was my very first Sunday Story Hour guest, and we just left so many things untalked about and have been talking about so many cool things since that we are back for round two. And so, good morning, Barbara, or good evening, right? Barbara's in Thailand. It's 9 o'clock at night there. It probably feels almost like morning to you. Morning.
Good morning, Kathy. I
I,
think for what I was saying.
I'm just so used to this saying this good morning stuff that I realized after I talked to Kim Gould, who I talked to at 6 o'clock at night, my time, I said good morning and welcome to Sunday Story Hour, but it was morning her time, so it worked out there. So it's morning somewhere,
Right.
right?
Absolutely, all the time.
Right?
Kind of like it's 5 o'clock somewhere, it's morning somewhere.
Right? So um, I just want to take a minute and let folks who maybe did not, because I'm sure most people, or I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people did not see our first conversation. So I want to remind people that you are the person who introduced me to human design. And we had very different paths in our human design journey and continue to have very different paths in life, just in general. But I think we would both agree that human design has been an important part of our journey. My, I'm always very cautious of speaking for anyone, especially you. But, um, you know, so I was, we've been talking about, how we both felt called to have another conversation and, what it was that was calling us both so deeply. And I think that for me, the reason I wanted to do this now is because, we're at this precipice. It's a new year, and, it's funny that the Gregorian calendar starts on the 1st, the human design calendar started on the 22nd. Now I was just hearing something about the lunar calendar starts February something. I think the Chinese calendar is just about started. Has it started yet? Do you know? And then we've got the astrological calendar starts in March, but we're either like just wrapping some stuff up or beginning some new stuff. And it feels to me like this time of really evaluating what are we doing individually, each of us, what are we doing that's working? What are we doing that's not working? And you've been such a huge part of my process over the last few years that I thought it would be really good if we talked about some of those things. And I wanted to do it today through the lens of our incarnation crosses, at least initially, because human design teaches us, that our incarnation cross is not something we're supposed to aspire to be, right? It's just something that as we navigate, and words matter, but I'm trying to find the right word. As we navigate in alignment, I was going to say correctly, but that feels too rigid. As we navigate more and more in alignment with our true sense of who we are, we will just kind of chart our way towards this incarnation
Yeah,
cross language,
yeah,
right? And
right.
so that being said, um, I would like to just jump right into reading your incarnation cross to everybody, if that feels okay. Is there
Absolutely.
something you would
Go
like
for it.
to say first? Because I feel like I'm diving right in.
No, I think you're doing great.
Okay.
I agree with everything that you're saying. We're at such a point of rapid change right now. And I mean, I feel it in my life. I know you feel it in your life. And so yeah, I feel like it's really a great time for exploring things. I just feel like all these things keep coming up and it's like, oh, we're having, like you said, all these great discussions, exploring things.
Right.
And I had one of those with my oldest daughter today, a really, really great discussion that wasn't planned, but it just happened, about her life and how she wants to paint it. So,
Right. Okay, well, I'd love to hear about that if it feels appropriate later. But okay, so your cross in traditional human design, so both Barbara and I are left angle crosses. And so that means we're here to really impact strangers and other people in a large to a large degree. So hopefully we're going to impact somebody with this conversation today. So if it's supposed to be. So the traditional human design cross name for your cross is the left angle cross of dedication. And in quantum human design language, Karen Curry Parker calls it the left angle cross of transmission. And I do feel like, especially lately, I really feel the transmissions in a lot of what you're doing, right? It's like I feel it that way. So, okay.
okay, I'm gonna do what I do best, and that's interrupt you.
Okay.
Because it just it just occurred to me that that word transmission, and I use a lot of different sources of information and philosophies and ways of thinking. So in soul teachings, my soul role is that of a sage. I am here to deliver messages.
Mhm.
Okay, transmission. So that feels very appropriate there.
Right.
In the harmonics of my name, there are a lot of things. So this is where, we can begin the discussion saying there's so much wisdom that crosses between different schools of thought. And if
Right.
you begin to look at them and you see where they connect, and it's like, yes, transmission. I can see that across all the different tools that I like to use. Um,
Right. And that just everything you said goes right into what the quantum description is: to lead, teach, and inspire others through your devotion and passion, to be a role model for dedication and commitment to a passionate cause, to share new ideas, insights, understandings, and ways of thinking to shift what people believe is possible and rethink outdated ideas that no longer fit, to teach and transmit new knowledge that promises to transform and evolve new potentials, to be dedicated to changing the world by changing personal and collective perceptions about what is possible. And that really just felt like everything we said we wanted to do today. So that was really interesting. And so then just before we got on, the other thing I did was I went back and again read my incarnation cross. And I don't think I said at the beginning, for those of you who are newer to human design, or maybe you just found this because you like Barbara and you don't even know human design, but the incarnation cross are the four strongest energies in our human design. So it has to do with the the four gates of your sun and earth. So, okay. And some people say it's your purpose, other people say it's your potential. There's a lot of different theories on what it is, but it's important stuff. Mine is in traditional human design called the left angle cross of uncertainty. And at first, for years, I was always like, what the heck does that even mean, right? The quantum human design incarnation cross is left angle cross of abundance. So the quantum description is to lead, teach, and inspire people by creating a foundation for living a relentlessly authentic life. To cultivate the faith and trust that your unique contribution to the world is vital and worthy of support. To have faith in your own value and to relentlessly pursue the expression of your authentic self to the degree to which you trust without a doubt that you are fully supported. To show people how to be authentic without compromise. So that when I read it again today, I have read these before, but sometimes you just read it at the right moment. And, this week has been a week where I have had a lot of those thoughts of like, what are you doing? Are you nuts? Is this really, but I think you and I talked about how I still get my mind telling me those things, but now I don't know if we want to call it my higher self, my soul, My body, my inner wisdom says, it's okay. We got you. You're okay. But the mind still goes, ah, right? And you just go, mm. So, okay. So that all being said, I've had a lot of thoughts about this conversation, and I want to frame one and give it to you because I've been talking too much. But
I'm
what else
used
is
to
new,
that.
right? What else is new, right? Chatty Cathy here. I I value our relationships so tremendously because the role we play for each other for me is irreplaceable, right? And I've wondered how people who don't have that kind of a person in their life can make the kinds of growth changes that we have been able to do, because a lot of it is because we're doing the inner work ourselves. But, you know, having the ability to just affirm, like when I don't trust something and I say, I got a bad vibe about this, and then you, with your intuitive abilities, are able to say, yeah, you're right. Like that just reinforces my trust in my own intuition, right? Whereas if I didn't have that, if I had someone else who was telling me, if I was only talking to people who said, well, how would you even know that? That's not logical or whatever. It would
Right.
not, do you know what I'm saying? And so I've been thinking over the last 24 or 48 hours really about what we want to talk about. And I've been thinking about the value of that connection, not just from a sense of, publicly telling you how much I love and appreciate you, but from a standpoint of, um, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I feel like that, there have been times where, similar things have happened the other way around, right? Where you're like,
Right.
right? Like the other day when you're like, ah,
I need
ask
a
me
sacral
questions.
session. Just hammer me with sacral questions because I just don't know right now. And Kathy does this amazing job with the sacral, that's my authority. And there's so much energy right now. There's just huge energies. We are being pummeled from every direction, from cosmic energies and solar flares and Schumann resonance that's shooting up here. I mean, we're just going through a lot. And I found myself in not a great place the other day. And, I'm not real patient with myself when I'm not in the place I want to be.
Really?
And I didn't do the things that I know I need to do when I feel that energy. Like we need to have our toolbox, we need to recognize. And for whatever stubborn reason, I recognized that I was going into a hole, but I didn't do the things that I know to do, like go out and plant something in my garden or cook up some amazing meal or something to get physical movement going to move the energy. And so, it's daytime here and Kathy's sleeping. And I'm like, I just really need Kathy to hammer me with sacred questions.
I love hammer you, huh?
Well, yeah, because I love the way you do it because I respond like that. Like I respond half the time before she's finished her sentence. And so, it's very quick. I feel like not a lot of people would be more relaxed and go, so, but I love that you do it very quickly with me. And I'm like, yes, no, no, no. Oh, yes, no. And it's like,
I
bam,
love when
bam,
I
bam.
get those surprises where you go, yes.
Oh, I know. And I remember a yes came out of my mouth and all day my sacral was just saying no to everything. And I was like, hello, what am I supposed to do? My sacral keeps saying no. No, I don't want to do that. No. And it was simple things like, well, do you want to go water the plants out front? No. And it was angsty, it was really angsty energy in me.
Your inner toddler.
And possibly that little 2-year-old, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And so the first few things she asked me were no, no, no. And then all of a sudden, yes came out. And I went, oh, yes. what is it? What, like I almost had to stop and think, what did I just say yes to? And that was the pivotal point where all of a sudden the whole conversation shifted. My energy shifted. I was inspired. I was like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And in fact, this was, I don't know, 9 o'clock at night for me or something. And I woke up the next morning and I was on. I was like, I love index cards. I have my index cards. I'm writing ideas. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I could do that. And we could do this. And this would be like that. And oh my God, I forgot about this. I was going again. And I was like, thank God, I mean,
Your open route was happy.
Sorry?
Your open route was happy.
My open route.
The pressure to do things is always on, whether or not like as you become more and more aligned, that sometimes the timing is not right, but that does not change that your open route and your open head are always telling you there are questions to be answered, things to be done. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And as you're in alignment and that you have to wait for right timing, you're still waiting, but that doesn't mean the pressure is not there. And that pressure just builds and builds and builds. And that's when you call me and you say, hammer me.
So it's funny because I was just thinking, my husband, who was a projector, he would want to do something and I'd say, but I have to do this and this and this and this and this because I already, I had my trajectory going. And we all know that it's dangerous to interrupt the trajectory of a manifestor or a manifesting generator because we're just like, no, I had the next 52 steps lined up, but he would want me to do something. And I'd say, I have all these things to do. And he says, there are always going to be things to do. They'll still be there tomorrow. But I think that was my open route that was just like, but I got to get these things done. And he was like, no, come on, let's go do this. It'll still be there tomorrow. All these same things will still be there tomorrow. There's always things to do. Anyway, that was getting off of track. And
we do that well. But honestly, some of our coolest stuff happens when we get off track.
It does. It does.
Okay. So, but getting back on track. I wanted to ask you, going back to what I read in your Incarnation Cross, okay, to inspire others through your devotion and passion, and this whole idea of you teaching and transmitting new knowledge that promises to transform and evolve, that whole message that we read earlier, feels so aligned because so many times when anything I send to you or say to you, you're always either muscle testing or in some way connecting to what is the truth in this, what is the
highest.
Like which is really great because with the open head you have, right? We can, and I have 70% of the world has an open head center, which is the crown chakra, which is the inspiration center. It's our connection with the divine. And we can spend much of our time thinking about questions that don't matter, right?
So what is the real definition of divine? Do you know what the real definition of divine is?
What is real? First. Right? These are the kind of conversations we have.
We don't have enough time to discuss what is real.
Okay.
The definition of divine is limitless.
Okay.
So I think a lot of us were probably raised with the idea divine meant something like godly or, something beyond us. But we are divine beings, which by those very words means we are limitless. And I went to that because you're talking about the crown chakra, the open head, the crown chakra, which is our connection to the divine, which is our limitless power. Right. And so you're talking about, what, I don't know if you've actually asked the question or I'm anticipating it, but so my passion is to help people understand that they are limitless. People are so powerful. And, you know, in the work that I do, the one thing no one ever says to me is, I'd like to clear blocks around embracing my power. Nobody ever says that. And that is probably the most important thing.
I
But
think
I
I
have,
said that.
you may have, but you're
After
unique,
a
you
lot of
know?
other work. Right, yeah.
I'm the one that will generally suggest it. You know, usually we've got some things to clear in the beginning, you know, some traumas and things that are, you know, really right there in their face. But this idea of embracing their power, and it's really amazing and kind of scary the way people react to that word or that phrase, their power. You know, I literally had someone say, "Oh, I'll lose all my friends." I'm like, what you don't understand is that by embracing your power, your true, authentic self, you will have real relationships. People will appreciate that you're being authentic and you're being real and you're not holding back. You know, it's when you're, you know, calculating in your mind, well, can I say this thing to them? Can I do this? You're not being authentic. And so then their response to you is not going to be an authentic response, which is kind of a whole other topic. But I was trying to get this concept across to someone. They were upset about a situation and how someone had responded to them. And I said, well, you weren't authentic with them. You didn't tell them all the information. So you cannot be upset with them for having what you felt was an inappropriate response. Because
I want to read something,
go ahead.
that line that I just wrote down the other day that I heard in a conversation with a guy who has a blog, and I've never followed him before, but his name is Chris Williamson. And I think he's like party boy turned philosopher type of podcast, right?
Okay.
But anyway, so he said, you'll never really feel loved if people don't even know the real you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you,
Right?
Chris, whoever you are, party
Chris
goer,
Williamson.
philosopher. Exactly.
Not a party goer. He used to be. That was him and his. I would love to see. I always listen to people and think, I wonder what their chart is. Like he feels like he's probably a 6th line and he's now on the roof. But that first, you know,
I
that third
think that's a
line phase.
concept that a lot of people don't really understand. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to back up
Okay.
probably 60 years here. I really feel like, and I'll be curious to see your reaction, my entire life, I always just had this feeling that I could do anything. My mother will attest to that. My father, who pulled me out of water, I wasn't capable of swimming in, and I just thought I could do it. And I really was, most of my life, very confused why people didn't say what they wanted to say.
Mhm.
And in fact, I think we had this discussion recently about
Yes.
I earned the affectionate term of bitch. People, my friends, people who loved me, called me a bitch because they didn't know how to do that in their life. The fact that I would say what I wanted to say, it wasn't done in a bitchy way, but I would just be like, okay, well, why did you just do that? That really felt nasty, you know? I put my cards on the table, and I found that a lot of people, at least from my end, my receiving end, it felt like they struggled to, like, what the heck, man? She's just like saying what she wants to say and doing what she wants to do. And as you know,
Unapologetically Barbara.
yeah, I am unapologetically Barbara. And I always tell the story about my 50th birthday party when my neighbor, we may have had a fair amount of alcohol that night, but she called me up on this, you know, marble bench, and she's hugging me. And she said, I just love Barbara because you always know where you stand with her. She said, if she's mad at you, you will know she's mad at you. You'll never have to sit there and go, she's acting kind of funny. Is she mad at me? She's going to tell you she's mad at you. And so trying to get people to understand that if you are not being authentic,
Right.
you have no right to be upset at anybody's reaction to you.
Right.
Because you're not giving them the whole story. You're not giving them all the information. So how then can you suddenly hold them accountable for the way they're speaking to you or treating you or whatever, if you're not giving them all of that?
And I will say, I will interrupt by saying that you have definitely evolved in your delivery methods of how you tell you people that they're, whatever your truth is, might have been a little bit more direct in the past than it is now in ways that might have warranted that name a little bit more than you now do.
I
I
think that, to me, and I've thought about this, that as I got more in touch with my authentic self, I wasn't bothered by as many things. So I didn't have as many things to say. Okay. So if you are feeling low self-esteem or unseen or unrecognized or whatever the myriad of, low vibrational emotions that we take on, your feelings get hurt. You get your nose out of joint, over a lot more things. And so as you get more in touch with your authentic self and you learn to love your authentic self more, a lot of that stuff doesn't even matter anymore. So it's no longer, and it's definitely not as much hurt.
mm-hmm.
If you're holding on to these wounds, oh man, you got a lot of triggers and you have a lot of hurts, and you just react to things. You don't respond. And as you begin to accept and know and love yourself more, you respond versus react, which is all the difference in the world. But the whole idea of personal power, people have a funny relationship with that word power. They think it's big and bad and ugly and pushy and mean and overbearing and all kinds of things. But
So
power is the most beautiful thing.
Why do you think people are afraid of that word or that combination of words, personal power? Or not, I should say why some people might start off afraid of that.
Well, one, they have a lot of trauma and things inside of themselves. And so they're afraid that they're going to upset someone. Also, I think it's a really big issue for women because
Power has been used against them.
Sorry?
Because power has been used against them so much, they see power itself as.
And it has not been embraced. Think about, and I don't care what generation you're coming from. It was more so in our generation than it is in today's generation, but there are still those ideas that we're not ever supposed to get angry. We're not supposed to be, our assertiveness is perceived as aggression. And, and that's part of the whole Barbara's a bitch story is I was assertive and my assertiveness was then equated with bitchiness. And I'd be like, well, no, I'm just saying that wasn't cool what went on there. But as women, we've been taught to be kind and gentle and nurturing and nice. And, oh, you've been kicked in the face 10 times. But, they were just having a bad day. So, we've been handed this kind of idea about what being a woman is, And I think about clients. I've got a really special client that I'm working with, mentoring, and she's a manifester, but she spent her entire childhood being the good girl, being the one who did everything right and nice and safe, to the point that it sometimes feels like if one thing was off, she felt so terrible because she wasn't being the good girl. So people have a strange relationship with the word power. And as women, most of us were not conditioned to be powerful beings. We were conditioned to be loving and nice and pretty and sweet, and and the women's movement pushed us along. But I often speak about the fact that my generation, the beginning of the big push for the women's movement, it was so messed up. And that power was ugly in a lot of ways. And it was misguided. There was a lot about, we need to be like men. I have no desire to be like men. I really love being a woman. I love my feminine side, you know. I love the fact that, I'm nurturing, but there was that push back in the 60s and the 70s of, women started wearing suits to work with ties, they were going to be like men.
But wait, let
And
me stop you there because I don't know that, and there's only 4 years difference between us, but is it that women were being pushed to be like men, or is it that women were being told you can be however you want?
that was a message, but a lot of the ways it was personified were not, you can be however you want. It actually became, okay, you still have to be a woman, whatever,
Right,
whatever
the bacon, fry it up in a pan and never
yes,
let it
exactly,
you're a
that
man.
commercial.
Right? Yeah. Remember?
Right. So
okay.
I can be sexy and mothering and nurturing and the cook and the cleaner and the baby diaper changer and be making all this money. It was an impossible ideal for us. But nowhere in there, I mean, they were saying you could be whatever you want, but they weren't telling us to be powerful. They were saying, still take care of the house and the babies and make sure you're available to have sex with the men and all these things, but go make some money too.
Right.
And then you
That's
had
just
some
exhausting. That didn't feel powerful. It felt like pressure and felt exhausting.
right.
And yeah.
And still in the workplace, we were not given that position of power. We were still, so far behind. I just heard something recently that talked about, and maybe you told me, about women's earning power growing faster than men right now.
Yeah, yes, women in their 20s are actually earning more than men in the same it's college, I believe it was a very specific niche, like women, college graduates in their 20s, the females were making something like $1,800 more a year than
Right.
men. So it's not huge, but it's definitely going in a different direction than it has in the past. But that just, okay. And I want to just not negate this, but I want to not get too far into what feels a little bit like a political economic discussion.
Yeah, and I
Instead of,
didn't mean
let's
to
get
go
in.
there. I was just
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
there's a lot of reasons for
Mhm.
people being uncomfortable with power, with their own power. But
And
the most powerful things are some of the softest things in the world.
And in the Facebook comments, it's funny because actually Nancy was in my brain, or I was in hers. I've got the open ajna. She's and she said power gets confused with force, right? As I was thinking, oh, it's like that whole thing we talk about, power versus force. And she said power gets confused with force. I'm learning our power button is the creative force, and then we are limitless. And that is true. The women,
Exactly, Nancy.
and that is, the sacral chakra, in traditional Hindu stuff, that's what the creative energy is in the sacral and the solar
Right.
plexus, right? So that energy is very feminine energy.
Okay, but I'm sorry, and I have to stop you because you can't just drop that on me, and I'm not going to say this. You know where I'm going. David Hawkins, Power versus Force.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't read the book, read the book. Okay. And it's the whole idea that when we're at a low vibration and when we're at a lower consciousness, everything in life is forced. We are living in fear. Everything is stress and it's forced. And when we get in touch with ourselves and we begin to lift our consciousness, we find flow. And then we have power. So force is very misaligned, inauthentic, lower consciousness energy. Higher consciousness, align energy is power. That's where our power comes from. So yes, you could look at that low consciousness level, and those people are living in fear and they're scared and they're in survival mode. And they may think of power as like, I'm going to push my way through this and I'm going to demand this and I'm going to do this. And it's a very forceful kind of power. But when you are in your flow, it's a very divine, powerful energy. David Hawkins, Power versus Force. It's an old book, but it's well worth a read if you haven't read it.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because the whole way you were saying that, I was thinking about how many I think the term a lot of people use now are soulpreneur. It's like entrepreneurs, but soulful, like the
Oh,
spiritual
soulpreneurs, yeah.
soulpreneurs.
Yeah.
Like my mouth wouldn't make the word. But they're out there, a lot of them saying, follow your inner guidance and all these things, but then they're still using these 3D world marketing strategies that say,
Somebody else's program.
right, this is how this is how you do it. And this is how you get people to buy your thing. And you know, I'm not saying that we don't need to make money. We need to make money. I would like some to make money. If
I
anyone
love
wants to
money.
send me money,
Love money.
yes, you can send me
Yeah.
money. I want to be appreciated, and an energy exchange is always a nice thing. But to say that I am going to strategize what I'm doing, and you and I had a really interesting conversation about motivation. Why am I doing this? And we are both second lines, right? So we're both really meant to just do our stuff, right? What comes
Natural.
right? What comes natural for us. And as soon as we start manipulating that or twisting that and doing something that's for, okay, well, how can I do this? So then all of a sudden we drop into this, and sometimes you got to do it because you just got to get some money to pay a bill, right? I mean, I get it. But in general, whenever we drop into this idea of strategizing, then we're in this like just mediocrity again. We're not using our natural gifts and the things that are really making us magnetic and drawing people to us, right?
Right.
So
You're a role model. You're a sixth line off the roof. You're a role model. I'm a heretic, it's like my weirdness attracts the right people, you know.
you're a genius.
Not that I think heretics are weird, but a lot of people think heretics are weird.
Well, you're not only a heretic, but you're also a heretic is the fifth line profile, but you have that 4323 channel, which is the genius to freak channel, which is either a genius or a freak, depending on who's listening, right?
And I love that channel. That channel feels so near and dear to me.
Hmm?
You
Oh,
know,
so many people I love with that channel.
I think I sometimes struggled with that when I was younger because I was just like, why are they acting like I'm a freak? I'm just, like I'm just talking about this amazing concept or idea or whatever. And now I'm just like, yeah, bring it on, genius to freak, man. You think I'm a freak? Yeah, it's fine. See ya. You know. So now I really love it. I didn't struggle that much with it, but I have reached a point where I fully and totally understand I'm not for everybody.
Right.
I'm not for everybody.
So I want to back up just a minute if I'm not cutting off
Yeah, go
something
ahead.
important. So this idea of transmitting knowledge, I've really been spending a lot of time thinking about, you have these amazing gifts. For those who don't know, Barbara is highly intuitive, and she, it's kind of funny because oftentimes somebody will ask her something and her mind will say, well, I don't do that. And then her inner knowing says, you can. And she does, right? So Barbara just does stuff. And there was a time where I don't want to say that I was jealous, but that I held it over here as something like to be, oh, like on a pedestal and, like, look at what she can do, right? And, um, and then I would try to do certain things that you were doing and it didn't work the way it did for you. So then I would say, oh, well, that's not my thing. And what I have been doing now probably in the last year, I would say, really coming into this idea of, yeah, but she's already doing that. What can I do that? And so I've started to find my own gifts with guidance from you in a lot of ways, but also with my trust. My word this year is trust, right? And I've realized a lot of my wisdom and knowing comes to me in dreams. And I don't even remember them, but then later they're there. Like sometimes like I just said to you the other day, there's this word, means something, I don't know what. And I know when the synchronicities come to me through life, I'll figure all of it out. I'm
Nice.
already getting parts of it. But so that being said, you have helped me and so many people with your ability to release blocks and release
Trauma.
trauma and genetic trauma, karmic trauma, all these things. But I had an interesting experience. I know I told you about it, but I'll tell people the other night where I had a horrible headache, and it was during the night of the full moon. And I had this horrible headache all day, and I went to sleep early because of it, but my mind kept giving me all this pressure of all these things I needed to get done. And it was one of those moments where my mind was saying, you need to do this. And my higher self was saying, it's okay, just trust, you're good. It's not the right time to. And so the mind kept saying, well, what about this? And you need to get this done. And this, but I'd let it go and I'd let it go. But this headache was there and I was tired. And at one point I woke up and I messaged you, like I didn't even type it. I voice messaged you and said, oh, I feel so bad. I can't sleep. Can you, like, I want you to do something kind of, right? Because Barb, a lot of times Barbara will just do, I don't know why I said that again. I know you hate Barb. Barbara will, you don't hate, that's a strong word. The point was I was feeling helpless. And then as soon as I put down the phone after leaving this kind of cry for help, I went, you're not helpless. And I tried to go back to sleep. I tried to tap a little bit, but my head hurt and I was tired and I didn't really want to tap and I fell back asleep. And then when I woke up again the next time, I literally was like, just like, I don't even know how to describe it, like pounding on my bed. I knew there was energy in me that I needed to get out. And I didn't even have a real plan, but it was more of an intention, such a strong intention. And I like was hitting on my chest and I was like, move this energy. And I literally did this so strongly. And then I went back to sleep and I woke up and I was good. I was fine. And then in the morning, I was like, did you do something? Like, and I was actually kind of relieved that she said, no, she didn't. And I realized I moved that energy. I did it myself. And part of it was my default has been because you are so powerful. And I think we often, when we see other people as powerful, we give away our power and we give it to people, we give it to systems, we give it to organizations, industries, the healthcare system. We won't even start on that, but we're powerful beings. And if we don't get to know our power, you got to know your power, I believe, to a large degree out of sheer necessity when you were trying to help your husband, right? Like so much of what you learned, you did because, no, am I putting words in your mouth?
I don't know if I would say it was because of that, but that was a really unique experience for me to just have carte blanche to, it's like having a client 24/7. Like any time that I felt or, I got an intuitive message, I could immediately try that with him, because he was here. I was taking care of him,
Yeah.
versus I have a client and they come to me and they say, well, here's my thing. And I'll tell you, it's usually never the thing they think it is. I nod and I go, okay. But then I just ask their energy. Okay, so what's creating this situation? And really overwhelmingly, it's never, because we have all these silly conditioned ideas. And so sometimes I get impatient. I was working with someone the other day and it was actually in person, which is a rarity for me, but she's a friend. And I was just like, because I wanted to get started. And she was telling me what she thought. And, I think that this, and the energy is just like, at this point, just like throbbing in my head, going, no, no, no. I knew that it had karmic roots, So what she was saying wasn't untrue. But, and I'm gonna veer here, because I think it's important if people don't understand that energy creates frequencies. So if you have ancestral traumas, karmic traumas, in utero traumas, childhood traumas, 10 years ago traumas, every one of those has a frequency going on inside of you. And it is informing your behavior, your thoughts, your dreams, your goals, your responses, your reactions. It's just informing everything. So to be able to identify that, and we have some wild karmic rides in our family. Kathy knows that, like we get into the energy and it's like, okay. And we're going way, way back. But it's so powerful because you see this pattern. So what often happens is you may have a karmic energy. I'll just use a generic term, like a karmic energy that has to do with being abandoned, abandonment. And you might have repeated that story because you weren't progressing, you weren't resolving whatever the issue was. So lifetime after lifetime, you're having this theme of abandonment. Now you come into this life and you chose a family where your father has abandonment issues or your mother or both. And then you start to have these scenarios in this life where your best friend moved away when you were 5. Your grandma died when you were 6. So you're just like, you're putting all those layers on top of it. And yes, you can say, okay, well, yeah, grandma died when I was 7 and my best friend moved when I was 6. But you got that old frequency that is still there. It's a foundational energy in you. And I mean, this ties in with the whole powerful thing because we're carrying around so much garbage. It's really hard for us to wrap our arms around this idea that we're powerful. Life wasn't pretty and rosy a lot of time in history. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of really nasty stuff that went on. And so that's informing all those beliefs and all those energies and responses in you saying, well, you can't be powerful. You got in trouble for being powerful. And again, I'm not, I mean, men have their own journey, but as a woman, I can say, so many women,
Mm-hmm.
we have, mother wounds and witch wounds, and, we have maybe abusive marriages in our karmic history. We have burned at the stake. Personally, I've been burned at the stake. I can't even tell you how many times. Kathy and I have been burnt together at the stake, you know? Well, that's a lot of stuff telling me you can't be powerful, man. You can't be powerful. They're going to hang you. They're going to burn you.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband's going to beat you. All this karmic stuff and the ancestral energy, because we have grandmothers and ancestors that went through similar things. So here we arrive trying to be our authentic self when we have all this garbage going on. And so, yeah, I just felt like when it comes full circle back to what I was saying about like my mission, my passion is about, one, clearing the junk out so that you can begin to really even understand what you being powerful might mean and the fact that you're limitless.
Right.
And then, like, with mentoring work, like, people have asked me, well, can you teach me and train me to do what you do? And I tell them, no, I do Barbara.
Right.
I do. I can mentor you.
Mm-hmm.
I can expose you to things that I learned and saw and read and, found along the journey. But then you've got to figure out, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? How do you put it together? And what pieces do you put together? Like for me, my energetics, and I call it Kathy's human design, because, she's the expert there. And in our relationship, she's the human design expert. I'm the energetics expert. How do we put those pieces together? And everybody's got to figure that out for themselves, and we've got to understand that the answer isn't out there. We possess every piece of knowledge, every bit of wisdom inside of ourselves. Yes, we often need a little help along the way. We need help to clear out the garbage, to open our eyes, to help us understand concepts that maybe we haven't been exposed to decondition, to get rid of negative core beliefs, all those things. But I'm a real firm believer in each person has their own unique way. And if you want to watch me wrinkle my face, show me these, the 10 best ways to do
Anything.
Get Instagram followers, or,
Right.
Generate leads, and I'm just like, no, that's your program, honey. That is your program. And I'm not saying that you can't make money or have success following somebody else's program, but you will never truly be in your flow and reach what I'll say your soul wants to reach if you're doing somebody else's program. That's why human design and your unique nature in the body graph is so cool, because it's saying everybody's unique. And that's a lot of the message that I give to people. And I do talk about human design. I don't teach human design. I just like kind of throw things out. Like, I'm like, well, of course. I, said to a woman the other day, I said, well, you're a 2-5. And you've got the Genius to Free channel. So social media, that might be a challenge for you.
Or it might be a challenge for some of the people who aren't for you. Like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it as you, because that's pretty, that
right.
People are going to project on it, even if you're doing somebody else. So you might as well be you and get the right people. But
yeah, and she was saying that in real life, she knows that she kind of has this magnet. People are drawn to her, but she's just like on social media. And I said, that can be a challenge, because of social media, you're putting yourself out to all these people. And one, I think, as a second line natural and a fifth line heretic, it's really hard to just like let me plan and schedule, It's like
Mm.
Kathy and I going into this talk. It's like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. Whatever comes up, you'll ask me something, I'll respond, you know,
Right?
and I'll say something, you'll respond to that. We're naturals. So I
Right.
was just telling her, we weren't working on human design, but I occasionally do get my clients design information. Usually if I've worked with them for a while, then I'm like, yeah, you want to give me your birth information? Because I'm already feeling something,
Mm.
like, this is feeling like a first line, all this needing this really strong foundation of information. So stuff comes through that way. But um, anyway, yeah,
I
the
wanted to
uniqueness of it.
I wanted to say, that where we've talked before about how there is this beautiful marriage between or synergy between knowing your design and trust and knowing and then the energy work, because for me has become clear over time that of course I'm going to find my gifts in a very different way than you. I have a completely open ajna. I have emotional authority with an individual emotional wave, and I'm left angle cross of uncertainty. I am not going to just boom, know the truth, boom, know the truth. I am going to know the questions. And that is always going to be my superpower, knowing the questions. And as I ask the questions, like even right now, just saying that, I'm all tingly. I know I'm asking the right questions. I know I'm on the right track. I know I'm opening myself up to more. I know that I'm feeling the limitlessness of me in the questions that I ask. When I grasp and try to have the answers, then I'm closing myself in. And that's me. That's the way I'm designed, right? And that's everywhere in my chart. It reinforces that. And so when people try to compare themselves to someone else's power, even if they're totally in their power, when we compare ourselves to someone else, each of us has this integral role to play in life that we are here to do and feel and learn in our whole. And when you talked about the Michael teachings, and that my role as a scholar, my role as a scholar and my what did you say? I'm here to master flow. Well, that makes so much sense, right? And
Right.
every time I try to have a defined goal or a set path or figure something out, I shut myself down from the power of my amazing ability,
Authentic.
right, to just have all these questions and not feel that I need to answer any of them, right? And that they'll just show up. So that's where I think when you can really see, the not self for, human design terms, which everything is us, right? It's still even the shadows, like we got to embrace our shadows to really learn and love about
Okay,
ourselves.
Chatty Cathy.
Hmm? Yes, that's my shadow that I have embraced, right?
Right.
That's another branch, but
Well, I just threw that out to
Hmm.
see if you would
No,
grasp it, 'cause I think that's a
I
really
am going to grasp it, but I
interesting
wanted to,
conversation.
we're already out of time. Dang it. Because Chatty Cathy was
Are
so
we really?
short. Yeah, it's already an hour in. But yeah, okay. So there was a thing recently where I was following a whole. Okay, so I do look at it, other people for inspiration. I do not look at it and say, okay, this person's going to tell me how to create my brand or whatever. But I got a lot of inspiration. There was this Adrienne Roach actually gave me or she sent it to a few of us, this video from this guy named Chris Doe, who's a marketing guy. And he was talking about authentic branding and about how people are drawn to people because of their realness and their vulnerabilities and their stories. And he gave some tips on finding your like like, I don't even remember the terms now that he used, but this idea that, you look at the words that people use to basically criticize you and make you feel bad, and that you told yourself the things you always said, like, stop talking, Kathy, you're talking too much. I even said it a couple times in this thing because I get so excited with all of this stuff that's swimming around in my head, right? Like, I've got all these questions, all these thoughts, and no clarity on any of it, but it's just all so beautiful and amazing. And so I just blah, 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 right? And so for me, chatty has always been a thing that I have both known and also felt a little bit shamed by, right? But I know that that's my superpower. That's why these Sunday story hours are successful, because I just have a million busybody questions to ask you, and I'm never at a loss for words. Even though I know maybe sometimes I'm trying to grasp but I'm still going to keep going.
But
So,
when you told me that, I really started to ponder that, and I thought that's really brilliant. And I know, um, and this is part of why the whole bitch thing came up, because there were people who were my friends that loved me and called me a bitch, but let's face it, there were other people that called me a bitch too.
mhm.
Um, but that's a shadow. Um, but it's also why I'm unapologetically Barbara. And that's also why I can tell you when I do an intuitive psychic reading and I see these energies, I can tell you that stuff. I'm not gonna, I'm very compassionate about the delivery, but I'm not gonna tell you the hard stuff. I'm not gonna not tell you the hard stuff.
Right.
And sometimes it is hard stuff that I tell people in the gentlest way I can, but like, yeah, babe, you just haven't been seeing the energy on the wall there. You needed to leave this man a long time ago. And now your energy is like going, I have had it. Are you going to leave him already? You know, now that's not how I say it, and that's not how the energy says it, but it is so clear that the client then messages me and she said, so I'm 0% aligned with this relationship. And I'm like, yeah, babe, you are. So I feel like that's part of the unapologetically Barbara, that I'm okay delivering the hard messages, the hard transmissions.
But I
Um,
will say, I love that you, before you deliver those messages, always ask, is this correct
yes, right. Is it for their highest good?
for me to tell
And
them?
so sometimes it's difficult, but sometimes I have to, I sit on, I mean, I deliver the energy, but, and then I hold my breath. Like, are they, they're seeing the report. Are they understanding what that's saying to them? And sometimes they don't, and I've had clients that a year later, all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I completely blocked that out. I was sexually abused when I was 12 years old. And I've been able to see that in the energy,
Mm-hmm.
many, many times. But I couldn't tell her that until she was ready to come to it. So
Okay.
yes, there's a lot of discerning there.
So I'm going to just preface this by saying I realize we're already over an hour in, and Barbara and I have a really hard time having conversations that aren't 4 hours long. I want to just end with one thought, though, that from me, and then you can respond to it. And it's this idea that we have to meet people where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
that people are, I was just listening to something that was talking about these 4 levels of consciousness. And there's the level where you're still in the life happens to me. I'm kind of a victim of what's going on. I don't really have a lot of power, so that's probably more of a what can I force phase. Um, and then there's the second level where people are starting to realize how they impact their own reality with their thoughts, and they can do the work on themselves. And that's where people really start to make an effort to, oh, what can I do? That's the self-help area, and affirmations and the let me listen to things like Abraham Hicks and know that my thoughts create my reality. And then as you get into the third and fourth level, which I'm not going to go into all the details, but by the fourth level, you basically realize that you're limitless, right? That you're magic. And you may be, and I feel like most people in the world are still in level 1, and we're shifting though. A lot more people are in level 2. And the level 2 is where a lot of people stay for a long time because of the doubts that come in their mind. And that's where I feel like, going back to the first thing I talked about, the importance of having someone that you continue to that continues to help you stay on track and stay in your power and see when you're forcing things that you're not meant to force, and trusting in your own power. And that is what I'm trying to do with my mentoring program, what you're doing with your clients and your mentoring. And I know, just a little teaser here, Barb and I are working on something where we're going to do something together that really helps people, probably with a group, where we help people to kind of find their power and see their path with their human design, all kind of in a group setting that gives people a little bit of that spot. But we're not forcing it, right? We're waiting for it to evolve. So putting that out there for those of you who might want something to respond to. So, okay. So that's my last little blurb, and we're 10:09. So PM by you, AM by me. So I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, and then.
I would like to say that I'm really excited. Kathy and I've talked on and off for a long time about some sort of collaborative effort, and it hasn't been divine timing, but we're there now. It's just a matter of what we do. And yeah, I do a lot of really, really deep work, moving energy. But I'm also an express processor, and I love my toolbox. And that's one of the things that I do when I'm mentoring people is it just comes up in conversations. It's like, okay, well, one of the things that has worked well for me. And so that's one of the things that I would like to bring to the table in this collaborative effort is not only the understanding of energy, but some of these tools that I put in my toolbox, and I went, this is really cool. And it really helped me. So it's not just, I'm not just all about, let me get in there and find out what deep, dark stuff you got in your karma.
Right.
I got this whole toolbox of really fun, cool things. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing that in a group setting where we can play. I want to play. I want to play with these stuff. I want to introduce it and say, okay, let's play with this stuff and see if it helps you. Anyway, Kathy's hitting the buzzer and going, we have to stop. So I guess we have to stop.
I'm trying to respect people's time, and
I know.
So, and it's getting late, right? I don't want you to turn into a pumpkin. So thank you, Barbara. And thanks to everybody who's joined us here live or in the replays or later on YouTube. Barbara, how can people best connect with you?
Just DM me. I do. I have Facebook and I have Instagram for Unapologetically Barbara. But Facebook keeps changing stuff, and how the messages come through. So just DM Barbara on Facebook or email me. It's just my name at Gmail, Barbara Grafstrom at Gmail.
Okay, great. Awesome. So every week we share stories of how my guests have come to understand themselves in a more loving and empowering way through the lens of human design. How you think and speak about yourself matters. Human design can show you the reframe of not only your own story, but the story you tell yourselves about your relationships. If you're ready to start living a better story, I would love to help guide you through the process of embodying who you came here to be. To work with me, I invite you to set up a free discovery call at kathybashanko.com. So thank you so much and peace out, everybody.
Night, night.